Hello guys, hello YouTube family. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I really do appreciate it. If you are new here, my name is Tiani and I'm documenting our real raw journey of building our dream home right here in South Africa. So guys, today's video is one of those honest, eye-opening ones. I'm diving into a question that I often see, people ask, whether it's cheaper to build a house from scratch from your pocket or whether you should go, the developer route. And I think a lot of people also do not understand how, this works. So whether you're in the planning phase or whether you're considering your options or you've already started and just want to know, what to expect financially, this one's for you. So let's dive in. So I recently came across this TikTok video, and in this video, this lady was basically, showing us her home build, and she was telling us how her and her husband, built the house of their dreams through a developer. And even though I cannot remember the exact contents of the video, but I can remember her saying, how extremely expensive building was for them, and especially because they needed, certain finishes, and those finishes were not part of the package that they signed with the developer. And I can remember how confused people were, because I could see the comments in the video, because people, I could tell that people are not understanding, like, how does this work? How does it work when you are building, your home through a developer? So maybe some people go this route because they don't really understand how it works, or others are doing it because they are looking for convenience, but we'll get into it right now. But I can remember a specific comment on that video where someone was saying the only reason why this house is working out expensive for you guys is because of the manner in which you build it, which basically equates to buying a house, which is similar to basically buying a house that is listed on Property 24. And I can remember that person saying the only difference here is that you had a bit of a say in how some of the things are done, in that house. So guys, I think let's just get into it and break it down so that, you guys can understand how it works when you are hiring a builder yourself, or you are getting a developer that will basically come in and do everything for you and give you a turnkey property. So building a house in South Africa through a developer usually entails buying a plot and plan package or a turnkey home where the developer manages the entire construction process from start to finish. So they handle everything from the municipal approval up until the completion certificate. You as the buyer then applies for a home loan through the bank. The bank will assess your affordability. They will assess the value of the property based on the developer's plan, and then they will also assess the credentials of the developer. So once approved, the bank then pays the developer in stages as and when the build progresses. This process is much more convenient as opposed to building cash from your pocket, but the biggest downside is it is extremely expensive, similar to buying an already completed house, as I've already mentioned. The cost breakdown looks very different depending on whether you're building with cash or going through a developer. Let's start with building with cash. If you are building with cash, you're basically in control of every cent. You pay the architect separately, the engineers separately, and you get individual quotes for every phase. The foundation, the slab, the bricks, the roof. That means that you can basically shop around, compare prices, and even negotiate. You see exactly how much each part of your home is costing you. You'll know, for example, that the slab is 180,000, the bricks cost 12 rand each, or whatever the cost is. The labor for plastering is 40,000, that kind of detail. This gives you a clearer picture and the ability to cut back where needed or prioritize what matters the most to you. Now, with a developer, it is a bit different. They give you a complete code for everything. There are no breakdowns, there are no line items. They don't owe you any explanations. They just give you a final amount. But obviously, their total will include materials, it will include labor, it will include project management costs. but it will also include their markup. So if you are, for example, quoted 2.5 million, you won't really know how much went to labor, how much went to materials, how much went to this. You're just given one big amount. In as much as it is convenient, you really do lose transparency and control there. Pricing flexibility, I think for me, is probably one of the biggest differences between building cash from your pocket or building via a developer. And trust me, this affects your budget, it affects your quality, and it affects your timeline. Building cash gives you complete flexibility. You can, for example, choose where you buy your materials, whether it's Buco builders or cash build, or even a local supplier that's offering you a better deal. You can also compare quotes from different, service providers like your plumbers, your electricians, whoever you're going to need on the house, and then hire whoever fits or meets your standards and budget. Then another thing is that you are free to negotiate prices. You can wait for discounts. You can buy in bulk. I've shown you in my previous video where I was detailing the cost of the slab, how much power cash gives you, how much negotiating power you've got when you are buying cash. The concrete that I bought ended up working out much, much, much less. The same for the reinforcement because I had cash and that gave me the power to negotiate. Imagine not having that freedom. So basically, here you are building at your own terms and at your own price. So with the developer route, there's no flexibility in pricing or suppliers. Everything is bundled into one package. You don't get to choose where the developer buys materials. You can't even swipe out a plumber or tiler for someone cheaper or better. You are paying the price they've set, and that often includes a markup on materials and labor. Even if you know a supplier who can give you a discount, the developer probably won't allow it because they work with their own network and pricing model. It's convenient, yes, but you pay for that convenience, sometimes quite heavily. So when people say that you've got more flexibility when you are building cash, they really mean it because ultimately you control the wallet, you control the decisions, and you control the outcome. This is another big difference where you can either save a lot of money or be left completely powerless. If you are building cash, you hire and pay for each contractor directly, the bricklayers, the plumbers, the electricians, the tilers, everybody. And that gives you two major advantages. You control the labor rates, you can shop around and compare prices. If someone charges too much, you can negotiate or get someone else. You control the performance. If a contractor is not delivering or is messing up, you have the power to stop the work, hold payment, or replace them altogether. In short, you control who works, when they work, and how much they get paid. And that also gives you flexibility to pace your project depending on your budget. If you can only afford to pay a small crew this month, you can scale down and pick up again when you're ready. Pacing our project is something that we have done quite a lot. Sometimes when we run out of money, we would just stop and then, save a little bit, maybe for 6 months or for 4 months or whatever the period is, just go and recoup and come back stronger. And that in the long run, I feel like it's going to help us, avoid, those big interests that we would have paid back, had we just gone for a building loan. So when you're building with a developer, you don't get to control any labor costs. You lose all of that control. The developer hires and manages the labor teams. You don't get to choose who builds your home. You get whoever they assign. If there are delays, poor workmanship, or even disputes on site, you have to go through the developer to sort it out. And guess what? You're still paying for all of it. Developers usually also include a markup on labor. So you are paying more for labor that you have no say in. Also, if you're unhappy with the quality, it's not always easy to stop things or switch teams. You are basically locked into a contractual relationship. You feel more or less like a passenger. You pay the labor cost they've set and they drive the process. So while some people may say, this is much easier and convenient, what's wrong with that? I really feel that, you'd be giving up control on one of the most important parts of your home build. If you're building cash, you basically have the freedom to upgrade or downgrade anything at any stage of the process. If you want to switch from standard ceramic tiles to wood look vinyl, you can. If you found a supplier who's offering a better deal on doors, go for it. If you want to delay, buying built-in cupboards until next year when the finances allow, totally possible. You are not locked into a contract with fixed items. You can scale up and down based on your budget and your priorities in real time. And that gives you room to manage, your costs as you go and to tailor your house to your exact taste. With developers, however, you often get a preset list of finishes and features. You can only choose from their selected tile range. If you want to change the ceiling type or the window design, that might not be allowed, or it will come with a high variation cost, like I explained to you with the other TikTok lady that had to basically put in more money. And then if you want to downgrade to save money, that's also not easy because you are paying for the full package. So whether you use it or not. There is also this fashion, with developers where they offer, the so-called upgrade packages. But these are often like pre-priced. And for me, that doesn't always reflect the best value for money. So yeah, I really don't like the fact that you are limited to what the developer allows and that customization often, comes at, this big premium. Something that can really test your patience when building your home is timelines and delays. How fast your house goes up doesn't really depend on cement and bricks alone. It also depends on how you are funding and managing the build. So if you are building through a developer, the timeline is often set out clearly from the beginning. So the developer will give you an estimated completion date, say 6 to 9 months, and then they try to stick to it. So they will have a full team on standby, project managers, builders, suppliers, which keeps things, moving on schedule. And because they are usually handling multiple projects, they already have got built-in systems to reduce delays. But here's the catch. If there are delays, you basically have little control because you're not the one that's managing the team. If things stall, all you can do is basically wait and hope that they communicate well. And the other thing is if you are building through the bank, payments are also made according to project milestones. So if there are delays, that can also delay the payments that the bank is making. Building with cash is actually a mixed bag. So you get to control the timelines, but you carry the risk. And if funds are available and your team is reliable, you can move faster than a developer would. You can even pause and resume when needed, like I said. If you want to take a break or, to save up on something or reprioritize something, you can do that. But if you're managing the project yourself without a dedicated project manager, things can get delayed very quickly because of material shortages, labor issues, bad weather, or even just, decision fatigue. We've had that. And because you're funding it out of your pocket, cash flow gaps can actually stop progress completely, unlike with developers who usually have funding lined up. So when it comes to building a home, how and when you pay is basically just as important as how much you pay. So what are the payment terms and how do they differ depending on whether you're building with cash or going through a developer? Building cash is basically self-funded. When you build with cash, you're basically paying for everything out of your pocket, and that gives you more control and also more responsibility, like I've said. So payment is usually done in stages based on progress. For example, you pay for the foundation, the walls, the roof, and so on, like we've done. And then you get to negotiate payment schedules directly with each service provider, your builder, your architect, your engineers, your suppliers. And if they don't work, work stops. It's as simple as that. The upside of that is, you can negotiate, you can delay payment if you need to regroup, and you're not tied to a fixed loan schedule, like I've already mentioned. The downside is you need to have cash readily available when the next phase begins because there's no bank, that is going to cover you if you are short. So, using a developer is basically bond financed. When building with a developer, the payment process is much more structured and is often funded by a home loan or a bond, like I've said. So, you sign a building contract with the developer, and then the total cost is approved by the bank upfront. So, the bank then releases money in, stages or progress payments as the developer hits certain milestones. So, they'll pay an amount for completion of the foundation, for example, when the walls are up, for the roof, and then the final handover. What is important to know is that these payments go directly to the developer and not to you. So you start paying your bond repayments to the bank usually after the first payment is made. So the upside is, there is no need to stress about paying workers or suppliers yourself. The developer and the bank handle that. But the downside is you are locked into a set loan or a contract. So even if you're not happy with the work, once a progress stage is approved, the bank pays the developer anyway. When you are building a home, one of the first things that you will need to decide is how much freedom do you want when it comes to the design. And that's where the difference between custom, plans and standard developer plans really shows. And whether you are building cash or you are going through a developer really makes a huge difference. Building with cash gives you full control, to custom design your dream home from scratch, exactly the way you want it. You get to choose your own architect or draftsperson, and then you make sure that your house fits your lifestyle, your land, and your vision. And then you can include, in unique features such as a home office, a large kitchen, those cantilever slabs or double volume spaces, a walk-in pantry, or even a separate flatlet, which you might not get, with the standard developer plan. And that also allows you to work closely with professionals like your engineer, your architect, and your builder, to bring your vision to life. Then you can also adjust the design before or during construction, although that may come at an extra cost. But the upside is, total freedom. You create something that's uniquely yours. The downside is it might take more time and money to get the plans drawn, approved, and built, and you'll need professionals to guide you through the process. When you build through a developer, on the other hand, your design choices are limited to pre-approved plans. Developers usually offer a few layouts to choose from with set options like, a 2 or 3 bedroom, single garage or double garage, etc. Changes are either not allowed or they can come at an additional premium. And yeah, this helps developers save time and keep costs predictable since they've built the same plans many times before. The upside to that is faster approvals, quicker builds, and lower upfront planning costs. But the downside is you sacrifice design flexibility and you might have to compromise on features or finishes that you really wanted. So if having a home that reflects your personal taste, lifestyle, and needs is your top priority, then building cash can give you that creative freedom to make it happen. But if you're okay with a more standardized, faster to build home, then going through a developer might be the smoother ride. Stress, decision fatigue, and constant pressure are a big part of the building journey. And depending on how you build, cash or through a developer, the experience is very different. Building with cash is high stress level. When you are building with your own money, you are the project manager by default, even if you hire somebody to help you, because you are making decisions constantly. Which brick, which tile, which code should I go with? Is this a fair price? Do I trust the supplier? You are also juggling payments to multiple service providers, monitoring timelines, checking quality, making tough phone calls, when things go wrong. I've been there, guys. I know what it's like. So yes, it is empowering, but it can be very overwhelming. Some days it feels like it's your full-time job, managing a house site. And because it's your money at stake, the pressure hits even harder. When you build, through a developer, most decisions are made for you. And that can be a big relief for some people, because they've already sourced materials and labor. They've managed the construction timelines and the workers. And you usually only have to pick finishes from a short list of options, obviously. But that means less stress, fewer decisions, and more predictability. So you are not chasing codes or supervising site progress daily. It's all handled for you. The downside, like I said, less control. And if something goes wrong, you might feel frustrated watching from the sidelines. So if you're someone that wants to be hands-on and can handle pressure, building cash is rewarding, but be prepared for the emotional cost. If you prefer peace of mind and fewer daily decisions, the developer route may be easy on your mental health. So when we talk about long-term savings in a home build, we're not just referring to how much you pay upfront, but we're also looking at how your financial decisions today can impact your wallet many years down the line. So when you build cash, you obviously save more in the long run. You avoid the added markups and interest that come with a developer build or bond financing. Because developers are built, for profit, they add a margin on everything, on labor, on material, and even on admin. When you build cash, you cut that out. And then the other thing is there is no bond interest. If you are not financing the builds through a bank loan, you avoid years of interest payments, and that could save you hundreds of thousands in the long run. And then, when you build cash, it sort of allows you also, to spend smarter, because you get to choose your own materials and suppliers. And that often means getting better deals, sourcing locally, and negotiating directly. This adds up to more savings over time. The key, you spend more comparing prices, but you spend less overall. So in the end, we obviously chose to build cash. And I can tell you guys, there's nothing cute or easy about it. It's very difficult to build from your pocket. This process really stretched us, it tested us, and it demanded everything from us. But I can confidently say that it was the right choice for our journey. We looked into the developer route, and the numbers just didn't make sense for us. I mean, I can remember one developer quoting us something like 6.5, was it 6 million or 6.5 million? Yeah, whatever the number is. But what is making building cash worthwhile for us is the fact that we are able to negotiate on some of the prices, from the bricks to the steel to the concrete, as you've seen on my last video. And that kind of control is very empowering. It's quite empowering, guys. But with that said, I fully understand as well why somebody would choose, the developer route. If you are somebody that values time, that's comfortable with simplicity, and you don't mind paying a premium for convenience, then it's a valid option for you. But it's just important to make sure that you know what you are signing for. So yeah, whatever path you choose, whether it's building cash or building with a developer, I think it's just important to make sure that it aligns with your season and with your finances as well, and your peace of mind. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about building a house, but also building a life that you can also live with pride. So guys, let me know in the comment section whether you are team build it cash or build it via developer. And if you've already built your own house, please let us know what is the route that you took. Did you build via developer? Did you apply for a home loan? Or did you build your house cash? And what are the lessons that you have learned? Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to share the video with somebody that's dreaming of building their dream home. Remember guys, millionaires don't build homes. planners do. So keep planning, keep dreaming, and I'll see you on the next one. Keep well. Love you. Bye.